Welcome to the Place Changemakers podcast series, brought to you by Sport England and our Place partners. In this series, we dive into the world of place-based approaches to tackle physical inactivity. Join us as we explore the skills, mindsets and behaviours, all crucial for driving change across local systems. Discover practical examples, challenges faced, and the transformative experiences of those at the heart of this work. Tune in for insights and inspiration for your own journey towards positive change. You can also watch these episodes and access the transcripts by visiting www.sportengland.org/place partnerships.
Hello and welcome to the Place Changemakers podcast. I'm Kath Lord-Green, your host. This is episode 6, Workforce Matters. Today we discuss innovative methods and approaches to recruitment. We explore hosting arrangements, the importance of building team cohesion and sustainability, exploring what does good look like, and how can capacity demands be absorbed within the wider system or not. Our guests today are Jamie and Elle, and as always, I'll let them introduce themselves.
My name is Jamie Waugh. I'm the creative lead for Together an Active Future that we like to call TAF, and that is the Pennine Lancashire Place partner. I've been part of TAF from the very start when I was the programme manager, so I'll be casting my mind back a little bit to how we created a team from the start. Zero background in physical activity or leisure. My background is pubs, shops, factory work, and then eventually a partner of mine decided I needed a more determined career path and encouraged me to join the NHS. So in the NHS, I've done administration work into finance and then into business development and bid writing, etc. And then found myself being connected into the expression of interest for Sport England at the start. A bit of context to Pennine Lancashire, if that's okay to do that too. We're situated in the northwest. Pennine Lancashire is about 6 districts, a population of about 550,000 people, quite diverse. And we're all about enabling sustainable change in approaches to physical activity and how we influence change in system partners. Interestingly, our team started with about 4 people meeting in a dark room upstairs at a town hall once every 2 weeks. And now we've got an army of about 50 people. A lot of them are part of our shared role model, which I'm going to hope to talk a bit more about. And that's me.
Hi, I'm Elle Cunningham. I am Senior Public Health Officer focusing on systems and evaluation at East Riding Council, and I'm the lead for the evaluation at Active Wimsey. Similar to Jamie, my background is not in sport or leisure, but I have been around behaviour change. I kind of started around looking at doing psychology at uni, moved into working in substance misuse to assistant sites, and then from there got into kind of doing research and evaluation, which led me to being involved in the Active Wimsey pilot. I started around 2021. Some of the stuff I was talking about will be predating me. I've plenty to talk about from recruitment from 21 onwards. We've had a lot of change within our team. Bit of background for Active Wimsey. So we are on the Yorkshire coast. Wimsey is the smallest pilot within the original LDPs. We only have a population of around 6,000. We're working at a very hyper-localised area, small, rural, coastal, seaside town that is very kind of isolated, around 40 minutes away from Hull. Like you've got car, now on transport, so it's very, very different to a lot of the other places. But we have quite a dedicated team of around 10 members working on that, and more active, happier, healthier women through increasing physical activity.
What do you think is important when recruiting capacity to do place-based systemic work?
Big thing we've learned in Active Wimsey is around kind of getting people with the right skills coming in, but also with some of that local knowledge of where we're working, particularly kind of being aware of the kind of people we're working with, what the environment is of the town that we're working in. And that's kind of been a bit of a challenge for sometimes. We're trying to get them to kind of come together. In the past, we've kind of did start with that very localised area, hiring from within the town, and we felt that was the best way moving forward. But then kind of as requirements developed and changed, we thought actually this maybe hasn't worked quite well. Then looked a little bit further afield to say like who have got the right skills and help the people that we kind of hired from within and continue to develop so we can then support that area as best as possible.
I'm fascinated actually today to understand where me and Elle share similarities and differences between a population of 6,000 and a population of 550,000. But I'm going to guess there's going to be quite a lot of core and consistent things at the heart of it, I imagine. I think building on that, for us, obviously covering quite a large geographical area, what's really important is that we were recruiting teams that were representative of their places. It would have been really easy to create a core team who sat in one particular place in Pennine, Lancashire, and assume that we could be the team to deliver the work. But actually, quite early on, we were happy enough to admit that we were too far removed. And so what we wanted to do was create teams who could represent the place, who had the knowledge of that place, passion for that place, understood the people, and to a degree already had those relationships that existed already, which would make it far easier for us to do what we wanted to do. And I'll add one more thought if I can, and get your view on this as well. I suppose it's somebody likes to say to me that people work with people, and they generally mean by that is you should always try and recruit the people that you need, as in with the relationship skills, and then try to then work out the skills and development needs they may have to do the job you need to, as opposed to recruiting the skills and thinking you can develop the person to become that. Because I think we've probably got examples of both, and I know which way around has been more successful for us. Elle, I don't know if you've got any kind of views on that.
We kind of definitely looked at that thing of hiring people's skill, like people's relationships and people's knowledge of that area, and thinking, yeah, then you can teach them skills. And I don't know how well that did work across the board. And then we kind of did more looking at that opposite way and kind of highlight them skills when maybe we need to move the pilot forward, and then integrate them to those that I've already got from them relationships there, and kind of all that mix of both.
And as I'm thinking now, and actually coming back to something that you said in your opening now, I'm thinking another thing that feels important, but I'm interested to be either challenged on this view or at least test the logic of this. It feels important when recruiting capacity that you're doing all you can to try and maintain and sustain a core team, in as much as because a lot of the kind of system place-based work is built on relationships and connectivity between people. The risk that you associate with that is if you get quite a transient team, then you're always at risk of going back 2 paces each time somebody moves on or does something different. One thing we've always tried to do is invest in people, in as much as when we've attracted people, try to show them that actually staying a part of this team for a foreseeable future is going to be good for their own personal development. It's going to be good for their own CVs. It's going to give them some interesting challenges that they can stay connected to, and do what we can to retain a really strong, core, consistent team. Like I said, ultimately, because a lot of the success is based on the fact that people work with people. And so I think that trying to really invest in people's personal development and show them that actually the opportunities and the challenges they need in their lives are in this role now, not in the next role they might be looking at.
Thinking back to creating your teams early on, how did you find people then? And why was they the right people?
I almost want to challenge that word at the right people then, but I suppose best people is probably language I'm more comfortable with. In as much as the best people for the job, in the understanding that you understand what job it is that you need to be done. So the danger is that you think about the right person, just somebody who can just really happy and energetic and flap the hands like Jamie does when he talks. But actually, if you want to do work with a madrasa, for example, like we are in Together Active Future at TAF, Jamie's hand flapping has no kind of value in that space. What you need to think about, who is the best person to be able to influence and to work alongside people in that space. So I think, firstly, being clear on what it is that you are trying to achieve in any particular environment or with a particular group, and being authentic enough to actually ask the question, what is it that we absolutely need in that? And do we have the current skills and capability to do it? And if not, where do we find that? So that's almost step one, is almost being super clear about what it is you need, to make sure when you do try and find somebody, you're actually finding them on the right kind of criteria.
I mean, we identified quite early on, like, what's that? The correct criteria. What's that? The local people not parachuting people into there. Because I think one of the big areas we identified as in our area that the population felt they'd always be kind of like done too. And I always had people kind of like dropped in, and so there's a big focus on one of the big things we want here is to create authenticity in there. So you've got people from the town that've got them relationships and got that trust already. And I think I probably would offer a challenge of wording the right people. But I think they're probably maybe the right people at the right time to kind of get that kind of initial bit of work moving to get people to say, for people, the town just think, oh, we've got somebody else from East Riding who knows nothing about women coming in. We've got actually local people here. I know that person. I know this person. I can start to link with this bit of work because of them relationships. I really, the focus a lot for us at that point was less about the skills and more about that authenticity of getting that, building that trust and that developing that trust with the local population.
And the danger is that if you go too far about making it all about relationships, what you end up with is a team of almost 0 different types of capabilities and skills. They're just amazing at building relationships, which is great until you really need to execute or get things done, or until you need to start to think strategically about how you can do something differently. I think that's why it comes back to almost the best person for the job that you need to be done. In Together Back to Future in TAF, we've done something in the past called Clifton Strengths, which people may or may not know, or may have variations of this, to basically try and understand the profile of the things that are natural to the teams that we've got, which was, and to be honest, we're very strong in the relationship building domain. But what it does is it shines a light on some of the areas that you might need to think about this going forwards, because maybe where you're not as naturally strong is this particular area, for example, maybe in influencing system change. And so I think the 100% right, relationships are key in this type of work. But it's really important that you understand that this work isn't just relationship building. It's strategic, systematic change. It's influencing people. It's getting things done. And that takes a very diverse mix of people.
Yeah, I'd probably completely kind of agree with that. So when we first started, we looked at that kind of recruiting from within the town. Obviously, we didn't have any roles like this in everywhere else in this kind of our local authority. We had to very much create these roles, so we didn't necessarily know what we were looking at for massively at that time, what the skill would be. But I think as we would move forward and learn a little bit more about what this kind of work looks like, and learn more about that systematic approach and strategic, what the strategic things need to be, that we kind of identified actually are the kind of exploring are the right people in the right places at this time. Do we need to look at how we restructure the team and and have a more of a focus on getting them skills in as well?
I really like that. At periods of time, evaluating is the team we've got right now, the team we need for the next 6 to 12 months, and almost recognise there might be something to do on that. It's easy to get comfy, eh? Oh, you like being part of this team, we'll just stay, shall we, and just carry on. If I can talk about when you asked the question about how would you kind of get the right/best people, I want to bring up a model that TAF has used, merely because I'm not sure if it'll come up. If it doesn't, I'll get strung up for not talking about this. But one of the things that TAF did really early on, we really wanted to keep the people that had been part of the expression of interest connected to the work. But those people were really senior, like strategic leads. And so we knew we couldn't, A, afford, and B, have an organisation's backing for these people to come and work on TAF. What we thought we could do was potentially explore whether these people could come and work for TAF for 1 or 2 days a week, whilst retaining their existing role in their organisations. And that became the basis for now the majority of our recruitment for the past 3 years, which we call the shared role model. And the shared role model is kind of different from a secondment in as much as on a secondment, you'll usually come away from where you work and come and work for a place for a set amount of time and then go back. Whereas the shared role model for TAF is we explore with partners and organisations whether they would be up for providing somebody for TAF for 2 or 3 days a week or whatever the agreement is, to retain their role in their organisation and also come and be part of TAF. And there was a whole manner of reasons for doing this. And some of that firstly was about not taking great talent away from partners who really needed it there. Because that's a good way of making partners not want to work with you going forwards. And it was also a way of us, come back to a point I made earlier, having a better chance of finding a team who were close to the place. Because we could approach a partner or a leisure trust in Burnley, for example, and say, would you be up for being part of this? Because we really value your part of it. And so it gave us a lot of what we needed in terms of a connection into a key partner who we wanted to try and work with and maybe even influence the change. It gave us, if you like, a little bit of shortcut. We didn't have to go and build the relationships because the teams had them already. But what it also gave to the individuals and those employers was it gave people a chance to come and step into something new and quite exciting, something maybe with a bit of a different challenge, something that could develop their skills in a new way. And the ideal being that they could then take that back into their host organisation. So I'm not sure whether unique is the right word in terms of a team building approach, but I think it's something that's a little bit different to how quite a few have approached it.
I really enjoy that kind of idea, kind of not seconding someone to take someone kind of completely out of their role, but kind of developing them, but having that kind of relationship with a system partner and continue to kind of, if you're thinking about that system way of working and thinking about kind of all them early adopters that we kind of talk about as a system thing, and you're doing that, you're getting people in doing that kind of early adopting kind of work within yourself, and that going then back out into the system and taking that way of working to have that wider impact in the system, which sounds like really, really valuable.
Well, it's just that thing, if I put a name to it, we've got lots of names, but so Claire Ramwell is our strategic lead for TAF. And in reality, what it means is that we've got a person who works inside one of our district councils who is always there trying to share more of TAF's approaches and messages and helping TAF understand the challenges that they've got and how we might need to think about the work that we do with them. It's just so different to trying to do it almost like on a meeting a partner to understand the basis. And so, yeah, it has been, it's certainly been something that has opened up opportunities that we wouldn't have had, I don't think, had we gone down a bit more of a recruiting side.
What are the challenges of doing things differently when the structures and HR processes aren't necessarily designed for whole systems working?
We've tried looking at different ways of recruiting. I know in the early days, we had some apprenticeships that were there available for people to come in, and they wanted to look at doing it like a little bit differently and find different ways for people getting into that, especially for people that were, especially young people that kind of use that kind of language, and they wanted to look at kind of holding almost like a meet the team or meet the apprentice kind of day, or the assistant kind of day where people can come and talk about kind of a bit of the work that they do, help with support with kind of like maybe some of the application form, and we get to know them more on like almost like one-to-one personal level rather than just being automatically doing that application form and sending that in kind of thing. It's something that they looked at and explored looking input to do for quite a while, but with us being within a local authority and the kind of the procedures, the red tape that come with that is that they couldn't get that past that recruitment team. So it couldn't be actually you trying to do that different ways. So I spent months and months talking to them, saying about this, about that. It ended up like not necessarily not happening and not being able to do it because it couldn't kind of line up with some of them recruitment processes that you normally have. I don't think we ever actually had it in the apprentices, or maybe we would have one or two apprentices where there was always that kind of thing where we'd have that almost team of people just to help support people getting into this kind of work, seeing things a little bit differently, continue supporting the local people really.
So I'm really keen that what this doesn't become as a local authority bashing, because some of the challenge I'm going to talk about will also be that. However, in reality, that's because they have processes that exist that understandably have to exist. And so it's just a case of, how you can work with that. So I think some of the challenges that we've found, I think some are a little bit more kind of standard and some might be specific to the shared role model bit. So I'll kind of allude to that. I think I agree with the local authority. So I'm not from a local authority, but I've learned that it's really helpful if you're able to know exactly what you want many months in advance, because it's many months of a process that generally does exist. And so we've fallen foul a little bit of not recognising the skills and talent that we needed soon enough. And then by the time we realised it, we knew we were 4 or 5 months away from being able to bring somebody in. And that's no fault of the local authority process. That's down to us not knowing and thinking early enough, who do we feel like we need, because we knew what the process was. And so a couple of times we've not had the skills and talent that we needed for quite some time, just because we hadn't kind of thought about it soon enough. One thing I think has been an interesting challenge, and I'll be interested to understand how you found this. I don't know the answer and what's a better solution. I generally struggle with the idea of applications and interviews being the right way to find really great people, or at least it's limited in as much as what it kind of tells you or can tell you. And we've tried all manner of different stuff. We've tried everything from your standard kind of interview presentation questions through to a full day where you rotate between a presentation and a panel and a getting to know you activity that terrifies the participants. And ultimately, it's almost like kind of bid writing. People who are able to articulate themselves best on the day are the people that you pick, which isn't the same as necessarily being the people that you needed. I'm not sure we've actually found a better way than that. I think what has helped is the longer we've existed, the more people have known us and have generally approached us beforehand to say, I'm really interested. And so you kind of understand and know people better in advance then of people coming for interviews and stuff. And to a degree, you kind of have a bit of a feel for them before they come. And so I think almost that the literal selection process and the culture of how you do it is I don't know a better way. And I'm sure there is one. So I'm hoping after this, people will start emailing me, going, Jamie, here's a miles better way. Yeah, which would be helpful. Particularly in terms of our shared role model. I think for quite some time, because TAF was a little bit in the background, we didn't really kind of put ourselves out there as like a delivery group. We're more kind of supporting partners in the background. And so it was really difficult for us to articulate to people who we were and what we were. And so we struggled to attract people to apply. And I think a lot of this type of work, maybe less so now, but probably the past few years, because it is a little bit different, it's a little bit harder to articulate in a succinct way. That actually, how do you put that into a 2-paragraph advert that you want people to come and apply for? And so I think just we some of our lessons learned that made it harder is almost the literal system set up where you do an advert. It's quite hard to articulate what this opportunity is all about, what people are going to get from this. And so those are a few of the challenges that we've encountered.
I agree. There's a last point though, Jamie. So here and generally writing, we kind of struggle to kind of recruit people and retain staff kind of just because of the nature of kind of how big your writing is. And some of the areas are really rural, really kind of isolated, like say women's leads. So having that kind of difficulty to kind of recruit anyway is hard. I remember when I first applied for the job and looked at it, I'm like, I don't really know what I'm necessarily spending applying for with it, if I'm completely honest, because it was so new and so different. And it's like, seems exciting, but I need to get my head around it. And I think kind of all that kind of plays together makes it harder for people to think, is this looking for a job and like, they don't know what it is, they're not really sure about the language. And we always struggle with recruiting. And then they also see it in women's day, which is miles away. Like, I don't even know where women's day is. It's kind of that thing about how do we get people in, then how do we get people to be bought in and understand what we're doing with it. And it's that kind of balance of getting the language right to kind of bring people in and support people with that, but also saying, this is something new, this is what we consider exciting. That makes sense.
I'll be fascinated to come back to this point if we have the opportunity, which is when we talked about the differences between Pennine, Lancashire and Withensea. Like I said, I'd never really considered the reality of attracting people into this place if they don't already live there, and then how you keep them. Because by its nature, correct me if I'm wrong, there's just less opportunities because there's less things, because there's less people. Where in Pennine Lancs, just in those alone, we have 6 different districts. Do you know what I mean? From the Ribble Valley right up to an urban place, you could literally, I'll just go next door for my next job. It's down the road and you're still kind of part of the system. I think you're 100% right. We can even tell ourselves that we're better at not creating our own language. And yet, I always say to people, would you describe that to your mates in a pub and they get it? The answer is no. Even if you think you've simplified it to the point of simplification, you just wouldn't, because you're still using words you just don't recognize. I learned really early on, because I write in the way I talk. Excitable, I like to kind of be creative, I want to infuse you. And then when people were applying, we understood that actually the time to try and get this across and infuse people is not in the end. It's when you've managed to recruit them and then part of something. Because so actually, to a degree, we almost took a step back and went down a more kind of a bit more traditional language to try and attract people. Because like you say, they're using keywords to search types of roles. And so in the end, I almost reined it in a little bit to not put people off. But what's this thing? It sounds like absolute nonsense. It's not real work. Knowing that actually getting them is the first bit. And then from then on, you're then building that excitement and creativity.
You touched on it a little bit. Once you've got in your words, the best person for the job, how do you keep them? How are you retaining your staff?
So I'm going to ask Elle to lead on this one because I get the sense already that there's been some challenges in that space.
Yeah, there have. We've had a big staff turnover, real big staff turnover. The team that I initially started with is completely different to the team that we have now. Within like the first couple of months of first 6 months of me starting, we had a couple of people leaving. So probably you looked at kind of how many people we've had change over that time. You're looking at like double figures, you know what I mean? Like you're looking like there would be just going to almost at one point like every 6 months you're getting somebody new or somebody leaving. And that's not necessarily just leaving to go to a different job, but it also kind of people are going on mat leave, for example. It's kind of like that they are difficulty kind of changing that. And then every time someone leaves, you've got or somebody new comes in, it's that kind of onboarding process again. And getting people understanding how it needs to go, like what it needs to kind of, what the work is, or what systems mean, what kind of bed working means, working all that out. And then people kind of developing as a team as well. It takes so long to kind of develop, and it took us a long time to get to that almost performing point because we were that kind of constantly kind of going back. I don't want to say necessarily we've necessarily cracked that kind of develop how we keep retain staff. A lot of what we're trying to do is help, and if you go back to James said as well, kind of help to upskill them, kind of say to them kind of this is almost kind of that. Here's how you can develop. This is kind of where you feel like you'd be good at. Like kind of matching people to what their interests are, what their passions are as well. Like some of the projects, some of the work that people are doing. Like, okay, you've got a real interest, or you're really passionate about working with young people. And we're kind of giving them that role to kind of explore it and run with it, and to really own it, to take it on. And I think over the last couple of years, that's what we found has helped kind of get people invested in it and wanting to stay. We have got one member of staff that has been here right from day dot. And she is definitely committed by it throughout, but that there's been a lot of others that have moved on and changed. But I guess on the flip side of that, it's some of them have also gone into different aspects, different places in the system. So going back to what James talked about, kind of where you get people in from the part of the system, and then you're taking them back there, taking them skills back into the other parts of the system. That's more what we see it. If like we have people coming in and working for us, they're learning around system change, and learning around place-based working, thinking that more different way of working that we're trying to do, and then taking that out into that system to allow the bigger system change within inviting council, or you really find it as a whole, kind of to get people working more in the same way, working more collaboratively. So like our leader previously gone, which is a big loss for us because she's been here a long time, she's great, but she's gone to go work in the ICB, so that's like a really good strong system partner. Also working the same way, taking that way of working it into the ICB and how can we then work together to kind of continue to support developing a project, developing Wimsey, developing that wider system.
You can almost imagine, and you probably couldn't do this, but maybe you could think about how to do this. Like almost either on recruitment or even on the application almost. We want you to see Wimsey as a place that you want to live and work for life. What would we need to build into this job for you to feel like that's an opportunity you could actually, you know what I mean? There's an interesting thing there to almost get them to give you the nuggets that you need. So I think, because the interesting bit is, the stuff that we do, I imagine, is no different to what Elle and the team at Wimsey have done. And so to a degree, I'm fascinated by the fact that sometimes just the environment is the thing that may determine whether people stay or go. I don't know. I'd actually say we've had very little turnover, even with the size of the team we've got. So I said before, a team of about 50, which is about right. Now, bear in mind, that's a team of 50. Some do 2 days, some do 3 days. You know, full-time equivalent, maybe it's 25. But actually, it's been very, very consistent for us from day one. And so I'll share some thoughts on why that may be the case. So again, we're a big we're big on investing in people, and we do that in a few ways. So one is we love to give people the freedom and license to really put their own stamp and mark on it. And so in each of our districts, if you go and speak to them, it's their version of TAF, with their plans, with their approaches, with what they decided was the right things to do with their people. It's not a Jamie directed or designed one or a Claire Randall directed one. So there's that bit of giving people something that's theirs, I think, that they can own, and create that sense of ownership and commitment to it, if you like. We've done a lot on skills development. So generally, because the nature of the shared role model means that you don't really in TAF have a job progression. And by its nature, you also don't really have salary progression in that way. And so our view is that if what we're doing is investing in people's skills and development and giving them lots of opportunity and exposing them to new ways of thinking with new people they would never get normally, that's as good as salary increases, because you're building up their kind of career for the future, if you like. And so we have done countless skills development sessions in all things from creative engagement, storytelling, facilitation, critical thinking, all sorts of things. We generally ask our teams what they'd like skills development on next. I think we've got one coming up, something about how can artificial intelligence help leisure or something like that, because that's something they were really keen to get into and explore. And so I think keeping interest levels and keeping that sense of personal development, I think, helps. Although then I will say we've done that as well, and maybe it hasn't. So to a degree, who knows, maybe environment matters most. And I think because of the shared role model, to a degree, people have natural variety in their roles. When it works well, what they've got are two jobs that infuse and excite them that are different, but have a connectivity between them that works with. And so maybe that's also easier for us, for people not to feel like I need a new challenge, because it is actually quite challenging being part of the shared.
We've done a lot of kind of speed, work being into the team. We've put early days in a lot of investment into how we form a team, how we work as a team, how we kind of stick with kind of some of that uncomfortableness, what in kind of consultants of best around the system, around system thinking, system change, how what in behavior consultants looking at things from adult development, around kind of being able to be more conscious and be more present in spaces and doing all that kind of work to develop the team in that sense. And yeah, we've put a lot of effort into that, a lot of work into that, especially in them early days. But now there's probably only a couple of the team that are still here now that kind of done that actually did them initial sessions. A lot of them team have gone, so we did a lot of that kind of putting stuff in. But yeah, people still kind of had different opportunities they want to move on to, or just the nature of, like I said, recruiting and retaining staff within our system, being invited to home and mind equipment. It's a difficult kind of thing that we do experience.
So I can sit here now and say our team are really engaged and really connected, and that's why they stay and stuff. And I've written a question of how do you know? Mainly because recently we committed to doing, I'll say a staff engagement survey, for want of a better term. So we've done quite a bit of work with Gallup, because we've done Clifton Strengths, as I've talked about. And Gallup, as you may know, do a Q12 engagement survey that I think is pretty international. So we committed to doing the Q12 with our teams at the end of last year, very start of this year. Almost as a sense check that says, so don't just assume that your team are engaged. Don't just assume your team are getting what they need, because that's a really good way of setting yourself up for a fall. Be brave enough to put it out there and ask people, and then understand that when you get that back, you're going to have to act on what's in there. Well, we've done that recently, and we've got a team away day coming up soon, where we're literally going to get the results out, and we're going to, generally, there was a lot of positives in there, and there was some stuff to work on. But I suppose a question that I'd pose to everybody really is, what are you doing to sense check with your team in a way that they can be free to share with you how engaged and connected they are right now?
Yeah, I think that's a really interesting question. I think probably could do more to be more explicit about it, maybe. I think we quite often, a lot about what we do in our pilot, kind of being reflective, kind of providing spaces in meetings where we kind of might all bring up challenges that might be experiencing, kind of also celebrate some of the successes we're experiencing, kind of linking in opportunities for training or conferences that might come up. And we do that in meeting every week, and we kind of constantly kind of have that as an agenda point so people are able to be reflective and share some of them issues that may be coming up. We also do kind of team days where we might put out a day to look at what's going on, where we maybe explore from the challenges on our celebrates and success, and then kind of have the bonding. But are you getting everything that you kind of need to have from this job to make you happy to kind of want to continue outside of just like informal kind of conversation you have with your colleagues? A lot of person could probably take away and think about how do we do that a little bit more and direct that.
How did your team react to the Gallup questions, Jamie? Elle's talking about capacity, retention of staff, and you're not having those issues. You've kind of got the capacities to do that at the moment, haven't you? And what did they feel about it, getting asked those questions? And did they respond openly and honestly, and were you able to act upon that?
Like most things in TAF, we approached it from the genuine perspective of this will help us get better, as opposed to anything else. So Heath, the guy in our team who kind of coordinated all, he did a magnificent job in doing loads of warm-up calls, videos, so people totally understood what it was, how it would look when it came out, how long it would take, how much we genuinely wanted open feedback with no filters and no reservations, because this was all about us understanding where we're great and where we can be better. So there were generally everybody was on board with it. I mean, Heath got a 100% response rate, which I don't think the people at Gallup had ever kind of seen before, about 50 people. Obviously not going to share the results too much live now. I think what there was is a really good balance of some things that made us feel like we've done some good work here in keeping a team who work in disparate districts well connected. And there are some things that are going to give us the opportunity to come together and say, how would we take that from a 4 to a 5? You know what I mean? Because that's the nature of kind of the work is you get your results and you look at your results and maybe you pick the ones lower end and say, how do we get that from that score to that score? What would we need to do differently to do that? And so because all of it is based on a genuine desire to want to be the best version of our team that we can be. And we always encourage in TAF, share a doubt, share a concern, never leave with anything unsaid. And the fact that it's entirely anonymous is also just a very helpful thing for people to say. So I think the results were to a degree pleasing and importantly gave us some things that we can work on.
Has doing these polls with Gallup and finding out what people really feel, has that helped in any way towards retention so you don't have to recruit more?
Well, it's early, so we're not going to kind of know that yet. The working hypothesis is if you're constantly iterating to become the best version of your team and you're doing so based on the insight that they have given you and you're working out the solutions together, you've done as much as you could do to retain outside of naturally people who've wanting different challenges eventually. And as I say, for reasons I've never considered before until I've heard Elle speak today, because of the breadth of the opportunity in Penn Lancashire, we just don't have similar kind of challenges I think that Whittlesey would have. And so that's a really bonus for us. And whether it's personal lives or business lives, there is so much of a breadth of stuff to do where we are, which is magnificent. So actually, happily, our recruitment is only ever generally because we're developing and growing. And so new work will come online, and then that's when we get a chance to test out recruitment. So it's a really nice reason to recruit. So we're doing some work called Active Madrasas, which is ultimately about working with the people at the heart of madrasas to try and introduce physical activity into the children's kind of daily madrasa lives. And it's a really tiny group of people doing magnificent work. And happily now they're able to bring in more capacity to really start to expand the madrasa work. But the key to that is the capacity they're bringing in has been found from the people that have built relationships from the past year, who are people who work in madrasas, who have said, I would love the opportunity to own something like this for myself and my madrasa. And so the recruitment, to a degree, still goes through a proper process and interviews, etc. But it's kind of been built up over time of developing relationships with people at the heart of this work. And so what you end up doing is, in a really happy position, you're choosing from people who really desperately want to come and join this thing, as opposed to trying your best to attract people in. So because our recruitment now is more based on the fact that people want something to expand and grow, it's a very happy place for us.
Reflecting back, Elle, is there anything that you do differently?
I think it'd be difficult for us to be able to say that, because I think at the time, like I say, we really felt that getting in the right people meant getting in the people from the town, getting in people from the place. And I think even looking back at it now, it probably was the right thing to do to kind of get that initial buy-in. But I think almost that whether or not they understood the way of working or had the skills to do it, maybe they end up putting it back a little bit. And I think it's that thing of keeping it local, but kind of getting them skills and maybe looking being more kind of like selective on the people based on skills rather than just being that localized area. One thing we did do a couple of years ago when we had someone else leave the team and we're looking for a new community development officer, rather than putting it back out to ad again and like we would normally, and saying like, there's an advert out there now, people can just apply from wherever you are, you see it, you apply like you normally would. We looked at more like the common model and spoke to some of our assistant partners and said, look, this is the kind of person we're wanting. These are skills we've got that we want within the team, within that role. This is kind of what they'll be doing. Have you got anybody that will be suited to that? So we put out to a number of our system partners that do kind of community work in that same way. And they identified who is now our pilot lead. So you've identified to come on as like on a secondment role, because on maternity leave for 9 months. She had them skills. We knew she had them skills from kind of her being handpicked, and she came in and just kind of through with it. So she then developed from being the community development officer to be our pilot lead.
It's funny, isn't it? How it would be easy to default to place first as a criteria. And then if you go, okay, let's explore that for Withensea, 6,000 population. How many of them are of an age work? This many. How many of them are actively already in work? This many. And by the end of it, you're like, well, we've got a pool of 20 people. It's really easy to think in those terms, isn't it? Oh, it's about the place. Well, yeah, it is, but the actual pool of people who are actively looking or exploring working Withensea is far different to anywhere else.
Absolutely that, and it is that. And I think when we did, our first couple of people that came through were seconded from other areas within the East Council, but we're going to say we're going to invest in it and we're already working with them. So, and they had a bit of an interest in physical activity and thought already, so like, okay, maybe we'll do fit. But again, just because people got an interest in physical activity or doing physical activity stuff doesn't mean that they understand system working or place-based working, and they kind of, there's small differences between that from the other kinds of community work, and then it's that. I think that's kind of all where we felt short. Like, oh yeah, we bring these people in the community, they have these skills, or some of these skills already, but the one we didn't necessarily fully understand ourselves what it was we were looking for. They weren't the right skills, and what impact did that have?
Fascinated to work out what is the one perfect criteria for this, because actually it's not place necessarily, because with Withensea Point, it's not being passionate about physical activity, because I'm not. But I am passionate about something being the best it can be and supporting people to grow and become the best. You know what I mean? So there's an interest I bet there's one criteria that's perfect that we just solve it all. In terms of the lessons learned, I think I've alluded to a couple, and I think I'll just mention one then. Put in the requisite amount of effort in to articulate with clarity what this thing is, and to not be clever about it. And to agree, accept that might mean that sometimes your advert reads a bit more boring than the work actually is, because you need to attract people in the first place. And so don't be a smart ass like Jamie has tried to be in the past. I think that was a lesson. I think we would have probably done our staff engagement stuff sooner. So we didn't really think to do it until most of our team were 3-4 years into it by now. And it would have been nice to have been able to show baseline and then progress and improvement over time. We can still do that to a degree, but we've just got less time to do that. So I think that would have been a kind of cool thing to do. Whilst the shared role model is the heart of what we do, it's not all that we do. Because one thing that we did learn is that for certain types of roles, the shared role model doesn't. And so actually, when we needed to recruit finance and assurance person, we actually didn't see the value of influencing system partner change in a finance environment. Because to a degree, my background is finance, I'm allowed to say this, finance is finance. They're not going to go and change the way finance institutions and infrastructures work. And so we've also, where we've needed to, just recruited people direct, and happily Blackburn Council have been willing to do that for us.
Do you think that would be your advice to others when they're considering how and where to embed core capacity then to finish off?
Yeah, I think there is that. Well, is it advice or is it just something that you learn as you go? I don't know. There is just something in. So our advice actually is almost always take a little bit more time than you have so far in thinking. Now, I appreciate there's an inertia. You can eventually get bogged down in thinking too much, but particularly when it comes to people, really, really think carefully about the roles that you need and the roles that you will need in that role in 6 months' time. And then articulate that out. Get people's perspectives and thoughts on it. And don't rush out to recruitment. Because once you've committed to recruitment, you're going to be 6 months in, really. And then if you get the person, you think, if we'd have just done this, because then you've got another 6 month process and you've also got a person there.
I think I very much agree with Jamie with that. I think across the board with this kind of work about taking your time and kind of almost sticking to your guns a little bit. And I think although you do need to understand what it is you need, what kind of person it is, what kind of skills it is that you're going to have with that. And I think you do rush into it and you end up getting that kind of wrong person. It will kind of set you back. It can ruin that trust. It can ruin that kind of understanding and stop you being able to maybe progress forward in a way that the pilot or your project kind of want you to, what you need to be able to do when the population that you're working for kind of looking for you to do. I think kind of getting them, understanding them skills, understanding what it is exactly you want within that role and that job is kind of more important than just saying getting a person into it.
There's a culture bit here as well as what are you doing to make your team feel like I don't ever want to leave this team? And there's really simple things that people can do that I think they're generally surprised when they know that we do it in TAF because it's tiny little stuff, but it makes a massive difference. So things like doing something for each other's birthdays, even if that's just a little group signed card that gets given, even if you've got a team of 18 people, because that shows that you care about those people and you want those people in your team. Doing little shout outs on WhatsApp that recognize really great stuff, whatever it would be that just says to people, this is the place for you. If you're not having lunches together, stop yourselves. Go and have lunch together. Go and sit in another room, go away from your laptops and talk as human beings who are part of the same team together. Because this is all of the stuff that says this is the team that we want to keep. So this stuff matters.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Place Changemakers podcast series. Remember though, conversation doesn't have to end here. Check out our other episodes and take a look at our online resources by visiting www.sportengland.org/place partnerships. Why don't you come and join our community of learning, where we'll keep you connected to the latest thinking and learning being surfaced by places. So until next time, stay curious and keep exploring.